Lesson 4, we are continuing on with the parts of speech, and in Lesson 4 we're going to take a look at the last two parts of speech. We've looked at nouns, pronouns, verbs, adjectives, adverbs, and prepositions. And now we're going to take a look at the last two in Lesson 4. And the first one we're going to take a look at is what we call conjunctions. Conjunctions are words that join. Now, when conjunctions join, they can join single words, they can join phrases, and they can even join clauses. Now, we talked about prepositional phrases, they can join prepositional phrases. They can join verb phrases. Remember, the verb phrase is a main verb and a helping verb working together. And they can join clauses, and clauses is another sentence part. So when conjunctions join, they can join words, phrases, and clauses. All right, so think of it as a conjunction as a joiner. Now, there are 5 conjunctions that we use often. There are 3 types of conjunctions, and we're going to take a look at the conjunctions and their types, but keep in mind they're still joiners. They link, they join things together. So the first group we're going to take a look at is coordinating conjunctions. Now, for the coordinating conjunctions, they are and, but, or, for, nor, and yet. And, but, or, for, nor, yet. Now, if you remember, we looked at but, that it could be used as a preposition when it means except. For example, everyone went but me. In that sentence, but is being used as a preposition. It's followed by a pronoun, me, but me. The same with for. For can also be used as a preposition. For the Lord. Preposition, followed by a noun or a pronoun. But these words can also be used as conjunctions, where they are joiners, and they are joining words, phrases, or clauses. Example. Paul and Silas. And is the conjunction, and it's joining 2 proper nouns, Paul, Silas. Another example. Dull or bright. All right, or is the conjunction, and it's joining 2 words. And these 2 words, do you know what part of speech they are? Dull, bright. They're describing, they are adjectives. So or is a conjunction, and in this example, it's joining adjectives. Another example, let's see. Prayed and sang. And is the conjunction, and it's joining 2 words. Do you know what part of speech those are? Those are verbs. And at this point, I want to point something out. When these conjunctions are joining, whether it's words, phrases, or clauses, what they join must match grammatically. And we're going to touch on this a little later on when we get into just some formats of writing. And it's called agreement. Joining a noun with a noun. An adjective with an adjective. Joining a verb with a verb. That's what we mean matching grammatically. The form that comes before the conjunction must match grammatically what follows the conjunction. All right, so noun with a noun, adjective with an adjective, etc. Could be a prepositional phrase with a prepositional phrase. Could be a subordinate clause with a subordinate clause. So what comes before the conjunction must match it grammatically after. Don't mix them up. All right? So coordinating conjunctions: and, but, or, for, nor, and yet. Let's see. Let's take a look at a conjunction when it joins some clauses or sentence parts. Example. They prayed and sang hymns. Whoops. All right, so there we have and joining the two verbs, and they match grammatically in a sentence. Let's do another one. They sang and they praised the Lord. In this example, the coordinating conjunction and is joining sentence parts or clauses. They sang, that's an independent clause, and they praised the Lord. In this one is joining clauses, independent clauses. So coordinating conjunctions, they can join words, phrases, or clauses. Now that's the coordinating kind. Now the next kind, the second kind of conjunction, is formed from the coordinating kind. And they are called correlative. Let's take a look at the correlative. Now, correlative conjunctions, as I said before, are formed from the coordinating ones. Number 2, correlative. Now, if you think about correlative conjunctions, to help you remember, they work in pairs. And if you take a look at your handout, we have some of those pairs listed. Both and, either or, neither nor, not only, but also, whether or. So, one example is both and. Another example is either or. Correlative conjunctions, they work in pairs, but they still join. What comes before must match grammatically after. What comes before in here must match grammatically after. And let's take a look at an example. We'll use both and. Both Paul and Silas both Paul and Silas were imprisoned. We have the conjunctions both and. There's our and. What makes it a correlative pair? Both. You remember both was also used as a pronoun when we looked at different types of pronouns, both, few, several, many. However, when it's joined with and, now it's being used as a conjunction, a correlative conjunction. Again, you have to see how the word is used in the sentence. Now, note grammatically. Noun, noun. All right, so that's a correlative pair in that sentence example. Let's look at another example. Sam searched for the shovel not only in the garage, but also in the basement. Let's take a look at the correlative pair. We have not only, but also. All right? Only can be used as an adverb. Also can be used as an adverb. However, in this example, they are used as correlative conjunctions, working together with a conjunction to form a pair. Not only, and not is also an adverb. Not only, but also. Those are correlative conjunctions. Now, notice the form, the grammatical form. What follows it? In the garage. In is a preposition. We have a prepositional phrase. What follows it? In the basement. What comes in between, they must match grammatically. So we have a preposition, and we have a preposition. Keep that in mind in your writing. Sometimes we shorten things and we don't quite grammatically have all the words functioning properly in the sentence, so be careful, especially when you're using the correlative pairs. What comes before and after must match grammatically. Correlative pairs work together. They are formed from the coordinating conjunctions. So those two are fairly easy. Now, the third kind of conjunction isn't complicated, but you have to really look at the words in the sentence to be able to find it and to pick it out. They are called the subordinating conjunctions. And if you remember, we looked at relative pronouns, and relative pronouns, who, whose, whom, which, and that, can begin a subordinate clause. And for conjunctions, there's one called the subordinating conjunction. And they also begin a subordinate clause, but they join that clause to the rest of the sentence. So they are a joiner. And if you take a look at your handout, there's quite a list of subordinating conjunctions. And as you skim through the list, you'll see that they can also be compound, just like your compound prepositions, where you have two or more words working together as one conjunction. Follow or read with me as we go through the subordinating conjunctions. After, although, as if, as much as long as soon as, because, before, if, in order that, lest, since, so that, then, that, though, unless, until, when, whenever, where, wherever, whether, while. All those can be used as subordinating conjunctions. So that is our third kind of conjunction. That is the subordinating. In the sentence examples, let's take a look at conjunctions. The last group of conjunctions we looked at were called the subordinating conjunctions, and subordinating conjunctions begin a subordinate clause. Keeping in mind the list that's before you in your handout. Number one, even though it was pouring rain, they went hiking. Remember I said subordinating conjunctions can work in pairs. Even though is our conjunction. It is beginning the subordinate clause, even though it was pouring rain. Number 2, when one is saved, he has a new life in Christ. What is the subordinating conjunction? When. It's beginning the subordinate clause when one is saved. Notice those clauses, when they begin a sentence, notice how it's followed by a comma before the other clause is added. And again, we can arrange this. They went hiking, even though it was pouring rain, and you still have a complete thought. Number 2, he has a new life in Christ when one is saved. But more effectively, if you begin with the subordinate clause, then the sentence is better, it sounds better. All right, so those are the subordinated conjunctions. Let's look at sentences 3 and 4, and let's find some other conjunctions. Remember, we've got correlative, we've got coordinating. The explorers are either studying maps or watching for landmarks. We have a correlative pair, either or. Conjunctions, working together in a pair. All right, now, remember, must match grammatically, either studying maps, we have an ing word, or watching for landmarks. Again, we have an ing word, they match grammatically, and those are verb forms. I'm not going to get into what kind they are. We'll look at that when we look at sentence parts. All right, so correlative pair. Number 4 is taken from Matthew 24 and verse 35. Heaven and earth shall pass away, but my word shall not pass away. Conjunctions, and. What is it joining? 2 nouns, heaven, earth. They match grammatically. But this is a conjunction. Notice it's preceded by a comma. That means this conjunction, but, it is a coordinating conjunction, and it's joining clauses. It's joining the clause before it with the clause that follows it. All right? So, conjunctions are words that join. They join words, as it shows here, and they join groups of words, whether it's a phrase or whether it's a whole clause. So, conjunctions are joiners. When a subordinate conjunction begins a sentence, it can be followed by a comma. When a conjunction is joining clauses, as in number 4, the verse example, the conjunction is preceded by a comma. So conjunctions. Conjunctions are joiners, and there are the 3 kinds: coordinating, correlative, that work in pairs, and subordinating. Now, the last part of speech we're going to look at is called interjections. So we leave interjections to the end because interjections really don't have a grammatical function in the sentence. Interjections are words that express strong or else a mild emotion. So let's take a look at interjections. Mild emotion. Also, strong emotion. Interjections are usually one-word expressions. For example, ouch, you stepped on my foot. Ouch would be known as the interjection. Ouch, you stepped on my foot. In this sentence, because there's an exclamation mark, the interjection is strong emotion. Therefore, we use the interjection. Then followed by the rest of the sentence, and followed by the period at the end. Now, for mild emotion, we could use ouch as a mild emotion. And let's use a different verb instead of that one. We'll change it. We'll use ouch, I pricked my finger. In this sentence, ouch is being used as mild emotion, and when it is, it's separated by a comma. So interjections really have no grammatical function. You can take them out of a sentence, and there's no change in the meaning, but when you add it, it's just an emotion. All right, so interjections are words that express either a strong or a mild emotion. And there are other interjections. For example, oh, I forgot my assignment at home. All right, oh, showing a mild emotion, therefore it's just separated by commas. Now, interjections can really be anywhere in the sentence. You can interrupt a sentence and put an interjection in the middle. Often when it shows mild emotion, you can. But usually they're at the beginning of the sentence. We can have different parts of speech being used as an interjection because it shows strong emotion. You might tell someone to listen and put an interjection on it, then that shows strong emotion. In a sense, it's being used as an interjection. So interjections are words that express either a strong emotion or a mild emotion. If it's a strong emotion, then we use exclamation mark. If it's showing a mild emotion, then we use a comma. And as I said before, interjections have no grammatical function in the sentence. You can have a sentence be complete without them. So that concludes the 8 parts of speech, the interjection being the last one. So we've covered nouns, we've covered pronouns, we've covered verbs, adjectives, and adverbs. We've looked at prepositions, conjunctions, and then we've looked at interjections. So what I would like to do now is to use some sentence examples and review the 8 parts of speech. How we determine the part of speech of a word, we look at how that word is used in a sentence. Because in our English language, some words can be used in more than one part of speech. So we're going to take a look at some sentence examples, and we're going to see how these words are used and put into practice what we've learned about the parts of speech and their definitions. Let's take a look at the sentence examples that I have on the board. Remember, we're going to review the 8 parts of speech: nouns, pronouns, verbs, adjectives, adverbs, prepositions, conjunctions, and interjections. Remember, nouns name, pronouns take the place of a noun, verbs show action, they're the heart of the sentence, or they help to make the statement, like a linking verb. Adjectives modify or describe nouns or pronouns. They add to that word. Adverbs can modify, describe a verb, add emphasis to an adjective or to another adverb. Prepositions are small words that begin a prepositional phrase. Prepositions are followed by a noun or a pronoun. The conjunction is a joiner. There are coordinating conjunctions, subordinating conjunctions, and the correlative pairs. Also, we have the interjection, which shows mild or strong emotion. Now, keep in mind all those definitions, or have those definitions from your notes in front of you as we take a look at the board. Remember, we talked earlier when we were doing verbs, sometimes the easiest way to start in identifying words is to find the verb, the action, or the linking verb in the sentence. So let's take a look at sentence number 1. Daniel courageously served God. What is the action, or what is the linking verb? Well, it's served. Served is action. And that's the verb in the sentence. All right, let's find nouns. Remember, nouns name. We can have proper nouns that have capital letters or common nouns that do not have a capital. Daniel names, that's a noun. Another noun, God. We're left with one word, courageously. Courageously is a descriptive word. And remember, when we're looking for descriptive words, adverbs will answer the question how, when, where, about the word that they are describing. So, served how? Courageously. Courageously is an adverb. And notice that also ends in ly. When we looked at adverbs, we talked about adverbs. Many of them do end in ly. So, courageously is an adverb. So there's sentence number 1. All right, let's take a look at sentence number 2. John Bunyan is the author of Pilgrim's Progress. You'll notice that I have Pilgrim's Progress underlined because I'm making reference to a book title. And when we do cursive writing or printing, when we have a book title, we should underline it. When you are typing it, then you use the italicized font to show that it is a book title. So we'll talk about that later when we get into punctuation and other rules of grammar. But let's go back to the parts of speech. As I said before, let's find the verb, either the action verb or the linking verb. Remember, the linking verb shows the state of being, so it's am, is, are, was, were, be, being. John Bunyan is the author of Pilgrim's Progress. Is the verb, and it's the linking verb. All right, let's go to nouns. Well, we know John Bunyan is a noun. That's a proper noun. It's naming. And we can also say that it's a compound noun because it's his name, John Bunyan. 2 nouns working together as one. All right, any other nouns? Nouns that name. Author is a noun. It's naming. Any other names? Well, we know the name of the book, Pilgrim's Progress, and again, that's a compound noun because it's one or more nouns working together. So we have noun for Pilgrim's Progress. Let's see what we're left with. We're left with the. And if you remember when we talked about the articles a and the, do you remember what part of speech we said they always are? Because they come before the noun. They are adjectives. So the article a is an adjective. Now we come to of. John Bunyan is the author of Pilgrim's Progress. If you remember your long list of prepositions, of is a preposition, and it's beginning the prepositional phrase of Pilgrim's Progress. So of is a preposition. Let's go on to number 3. You'll see number 3 is quite a long sentence. So as I read through it, listen and look for what the verbs are. Remember, we're going to start with action verbs or the linking verbs. He is referring to John Bunyan, so he you should know right away as the pronoun. It's taking the place of the name John Bunyan. He was put into prison and kept there for 12 years because he preached without the authority of the state church. So we know that he is a pronoun, so we'll leave it at that. Now let's go to the verbs. We want to find action, we want to find linking verbs. Well, let's try to do it in the order that it comes. Was is a verb. It's a linking verb. Was put into prison and kept. Kept is an action verb. So here we have another verb. Kept there for 12 years because he preached without the authority of the state church. Another action verb, preached. Without the authority of the state church. Well, are there any other verbs, any other action, any other linking verbs? No, we found all the verbs. Now, let's go to other parts of speech. We know he is a pronoun because it's referring to John Bunyan, and we also have another pronoun, he. So we'll go ahead and label that one. And you remember he is a personal pronoun. It's from the personal pronoun group. Remember there were 6 divisions of pronouns, and the personal pronoun he shows masculine gender and singular. All right, are there any other pronouns from our pronoun group? No, there aren't. All right, let's go to nouns. Nouns name people, places, things, and ideas. He was put into prison. Prison is a place. Prison is a noun. And kept there for 12 years. Years is a thing. It's a noun. Because he preached without the authority. Authority names. It is also a noun of the state church. Church is also a noun. It's naming. All right, are there any other nouns? No, I don't think so. But we definitely have quite a few words remaining. My mistake. There is another verb that I overlooked. Was, and hopefully you caught that, but I didn't. Not until now. Was put. Was put is a verb phrase. Was is being used as the helping verb, and put is being used as the main verb. So I overlooked that one. So was put is working together. So let's join it instead of leaving it separate. All right, my mistake on that one. There we have a verb phrase. All right, let's continue on. Into. Into is followed by a noun, prison. Into is a preposition. And it's working together to form a prepositional phrase. So we'll just put parentheses around it just to show that that is a unit working together. And kept there. Kept where? There. What answers where? That's an adverb. There. All right, let's go on to the next one. For 12 years. Here we have another prepositional phrase unit. For, if you look at your list of prepositions, is a preposition. So what's the whole prepositional phrase? Working together for 12 years. Now, within the prepositional phrase, the noun has a modifier telling how many or how much, and that's what adjectives answer. So 12 is an adjective, and 12 is describing years. Now we have the word because. Because he preached without the authority of the state church. Notice how because is followed by a verb, and he is the subject. Do you remember what because would be? Do you remember your whole list? These are conjunctions, and it's a subordinating conjunction, and it's beginning a subordinate clause. And later on, when we start taking a look at sentence parts, we're going to take a look at subordinate clauses, and we'll explain them a little further. But in this sentence, because is a conjunction, and it's a subordinating conjunction. And it begins the clause, because he preached without the authority of the state church. All right, let's continue on. Without the authority, preposition. If you look at your list, you'll find without on that list of prepositions. Sometimes when you're trying to find prepositions, it's good to have that list in front of you. And the same with the pronoun list, especially the indefinite ones. And also the conjunction list, especially the subordinating conjunctions. Because there are so many of them, to try to find them in a sentence, it's good just to be able to reference to those lists to see what they are. Now, what's the prepositional phrase that the preposition without is beginning and working with? It's working with the noun authority, so that is the prepositional phrase. Without the authority. The article, it's an adjective. And we can draw the arrow there to show that it is modifying or describing authority. And then the last group we have of the state church. Notice of is used as a preposition. The prepositional phrase of is a preposition. All right, the and state. What kind of church? State church. And the. Both of those are adjectives and describing church. So, those are the parts of speech in that particular sentence. So, to see how a word is used in a sentence to determine its part of speech, take one word at a time. Find the verb first, and then go from there. Find nouns, nouns name. Those are easier to spot as well. And then go to the pronouns, thinking of them taking the place of a noun. And then take a look at finding your prepositions, and then finding your adjectives. And in this sentence, there was no single word adverb, not like we had here. All right. So to determine the part of speech of a word, see how it's used in the sentence. Let's take a look at some verses in the book of Proverbs. So take your Bible, and let's take a look at some short verses. And the first verse I want to take a look at is Proverbs chapter 10 in verse 5. Proverbs chapter 10 and verse 5. Follow as I read it, and as I read the verse, see if you can pick out the verbs, the action, or the linking verb. Proverbs chapter 10 and verse 5. He that gathereth in summer is a wise son, but he that sleepeth in harvest is a son that causeth shame. Let me read it again. He that gathereth in summer is a wise son, but he that sleepeth in harvest is a son that causeth shame. All right, let's find the actions. Let's find the verbs. The first verb, gathereth. That's an action verb. The next verb, is. That's a linking verb. Remember, am, is, are, was, were, be, being, being. All right, so is a linking verb. Let's continue on. Another action verb, sleepeth. Linking verb, is. And then lastly, the last action verb, causeth. All right, so our verbs are gathereth, is, sleepeth, is, causeth. All right, let's go back and find let's do pronouns to start with, because the verse begins with the pronoun he. And let's see if there are any other pronouns. He again. Now, there is another group of pronouns in this verse. We haven't looked at them. They weren't on the board on those examples. But if you remember your groups of pronouns, we have the relative, the interrogative, we have the demonstrative, the indefinite, the personal. There is a different set of pronouns in verse 5. And that's the pronoun that. This, that, who, whose, whom, which, that. Do you remember the relative pronoun group? Who, whose, whom, which, and that. That is being used as a relative pronoun. It's also being used to begin a clause, and relative pronouns begin a clause. So that is a pronoun, a relative pronoun. And if you continue on, but he that sleepeth, it's also being used as a relative pronoun, beginning a clause, and also in the latter part, that causeth shame. There it is again, that, relative pronoun. So we could label that as a pronoun. Let's continue on. Summer. Summer is a noun. Sun. Well, what part of speech is sun? Sun is naming a person. Therefore, it's a noun. Harvest. Harvest is a thing. Harvest is a noun. There we have the word sun again. And then the last noun, shame. So we have several nouns. All right? The nouns are summer, sun, harvest, shame. Let's continue on. We've got pronouns, we've got verbs, we've got nouns. Now let's take a look at prepositions. Remember the long list of prepositions. Our first preposition is in. And the prepositional phrase, in summer. It's working together as a unit. Any other prepositions? Yes, there is. There is in again. In harvest. Again, prepositional phrase working together as a unit. So that's it for prepositions. Now let's go back and do modifiers. Remember, we have adjective modifiers that modify nouns and pronouns, and we have adverb modifiers that can modify a verb or add emphasis to an adjective or another adverb. Let's take a look. A is an article. It's always an adjective. Wise. What kind of sun? Wise sun. Wise is an adjective modifying sun. A is the article modifying sun. And again, in the latter part of the verse, a sun. A is the article modifying sun. Now I believe we just have one word left, and that is the word but. Notice that but is followed by subjects and verbs. So but is being used as a conjunction, and it's joining two independent clauses. So but is used as a conjunction in this particular verse. All right, let's take a look at another example. Let's go to Proverbs chapter 16. Proverbs chapter 16. And let's take a look at verse 3. Proverbs chapter 16, and let's take a look at verse 3. Follow as I read. It says, "Commit thy works unto the Lord, and thy thoughts shall be established." All right, again, let's always start with action and verbs. The first verb, commit. Commit is an action. All right, let's continue on. Thy works unto the Lord, and thy thoughts shall be established. Here we have a verb phrase. The main verb is an action verb, established. The helping verbs are shall be, so that we have a whole unit, shall be established. Three verbs working together as one, a verb phrase. Commit thy works unto the Lord, and thy thoughts shall be established. All right, let's go back and find some nouns. Works is a noun, it's naming. Lord is a noun. Thoughts is a noun. So works is naming, Lord is naming, thoughts is naming. Let's go back and find modifiers. Words that are describing nouns. Thy works. Thy is an adjective, and it's a personal pronoun acting as an adjective describing works. The is an adjective, article modifying Lord. Thy, again, acting as an adjective describing thoughts. Whose thoughts? Thy thoughts. Whose works? Thy works. Now we just have, I believe, two words left. And the first one is unto. Unto the Lord. Unto is a preposition. You'll find it in that long list of prepositions. And the whole unit, the prepositional phrase, unto the Lord, working together. The last word is and. And is a conjunction, joining the two ideas. Commit thy works unto the Lord, and thy thoughts shall be established. In verse number 3, the subject of the first verb, commit, is the subject you understood. It's one of those sentences that's what we call a command, an imperative sentence. So commit thy works unto the Lord, making a request. You is the subject understood, and you is a pronoun. And thy thought shall be established. All right, let's do one more. Psalm chapter 100. Let's go to the book of Psalms. And near the end of the book of Psalms, let's take a look at Psalm 100. And verse 2 in Psalm 100. Psalm 100 is one of my personal favorites that I like to read, praising our Lord. So Psalm chapter 100 and verse 2. Follow as I read. Psalm 100 verse 2. Serve the Lord with gladness, come before his presence with singing. All right, serve the Lord with gladness, come before his presence with singing. Let's find the verbs. Serve is an action. Do you know what the subject is? Subject, you understood. This is an imperative sentence, a request. Serve the Lord with gladness. Come before his presence with singing. Come is another verb showing action. Now, you might say, well, what about singing? Singing is an action. That's very true. But remember I said we need to determine the part of speech of a word by how it's used. In this particular sentence, it's not being used as a verb. It's being used actually as a noun. If you take a look at what comes before the word singing, with singing, singing is a preposition, and prepositions are followed by nouns or pronouns. And in this particular verse, with singing is a prepositional phrase. Therefore, singing is being used as a noun. We call it a verbal noun because it's a verb form being used as a noun. But our main verbs, the action in the sentence, the first one is serve and the second one is come. Now, let's go back and find some nouns. Lord is a noun, a proper noun. Gladness is also a noun, it's naming. Presence is a noun, it's also naming. And we said singing is also a noun, a verbal noun. Well, we know with is a preposition, and we know with gladness, with is a preposition there again, and it's introducing the prepositional phrase with gladness. Another preposition is before. Before his presence. Before is being used as a preposition, and the prepositional phrase before his presence is a unit working together as one. The is an article. It's used as an adjective modifying Lord. His is, we think of it as the personal pronoun, which is true, but in this sentence it's being used as an adjective. Whose presence? His presence. His is an adjective modifying presence. We kind of looked at that verse backwards a little bit, so let me just go over it and review the parts of speech of each of the words in the verse. Serve is an action verb. The is an adjective modifying Lord. Lord is a noun. With is a preposition. Gladness is a noun. Come, action verb. Before, preposition. His, adjective. Presence, noun. With, preposition. Singing, verbal noun, it's a noun. A verb form being used as a noun. So those are the 8 parts of speech. Remember we talked about one step at a time and building precept upon precept, and we looked at the verse in Isaiah. So our foundation was the parts of speech. In our English language is divided into 8 parts of speech. So we have taken a look at sentences and examples, and we've identified the parts of speech in sentences. So this is the end of that particular section of our grammar, the parts of speech. That's kind of the bottom layer, the foundation, and then we're going to build on that and see how parts of speech work together. And one example is the prepositional phrase. We've already touched on that one, where a preposition works with a noun or pronoun, and they form a sentence part called a prepositional phrase. That's just one example. So your assignment at the end of this lesson 4 is going to be a handout, and you're going to review the adverb, the conjunction, and the preposition. and you'll be identifying those words with those parts of speech. So do the handout. Keep in mind the definition of those parts of speech, what questions they answer, what they do. Keep in front of you the list of what they are, especially conjunctions, prepositions, to help you find them in the sentences. And then also I have a writing assignment for you to put into practice some writing skills. I want you to write a paragraph describing the time that you got saved. Now, it's only a paragraph. When you write a paragraph, it should be probably anywhere from 150 to 200 words. It should not go over 200 words. It can be less, but not over. All right, so that's approximately how many words your paragraph would be. I want you to describe, as I said before, when you got saved. And keep in mind the parts of speech. Try to use adjectives and adverbs to add color, so to speak, to your writing. Remember to begin your paragraph with a topic sentence, one sentence to introduce it, and then all your other sentences should make reference to that topic sentence at the beginning of your paragraph. Put into practice some sentence variety. Remember we talked about beginning sentences with an adverb when we were looking at the adverbs and having adjectives in there, rearranging the sentences. So try to have variety, not always beginning with a subject and a verb, a subject and a verb. So try to keep that in mind as well. I would expect that you would do a rough copy, and I would expect that even though it's a paragraph, you would go back and edit that paragraph and try to rearrange sentences to make them more interesting. Try to add some descriptive words to make it more interesting, and then submit the final draft. So make sure you do edit it and go over it. Also, after we take up the handout, in our next class in Lesson 5, we will take up the handout that reviews the adjective, the adverb, the conjunction, the preposition, and also interjection. I don't think the handout had any, but there might have been interjections in there. They're easy to spot. After we correct that, then be ready to submit your paragraph as well before Lesson 5. And then also before Lesson 5, or in Lesson 5, I should say, there will be a quiz. So prepare for the quiz. Study over the parts of speech, the 8 parts of speech, and your quiz will be just identifying the parts of speech and knowing what they are. So study over your notes on the 8 parts of speech, and there'll be a quiz also in our next class. So we've got the handout, we've got the paragraph writing assignment, and then your quiz.